Welcome to a special meeting of the Historic Preservation Commission. This is a special meeting, Monday, December 16th, 5 p.m., and it's our last meeting of 2013. With that, could we have roll call, please?
Commissioner Garpetian?
Here.
Commissioner Morgan?
Present.
Madam Chair Shire?
Here.
Commissioner Vartanian?
Here.
And Commissioner Vidor?
Here.
Thank you, all present.
Thank you. Item number 2 on the agenda. The report was posted on or before Wednesday, December 11th, 2013, on the bulletin board outside of City Hall. Item number 3 is the approval of the meeting minutes. This is from the meeting on October 28th, 2013. Were there any comments or corrections to the minutes?
On item number 5, the first bullet point, it should actually read, who attended the October 12th fundraiser for Brand Library at Farrar House. It wasn't
Okay.
at the Brand Library.
Okay. I got it.
Great, thank you. Any other comments?
Nope.
Looks good. Okay, could we have roll call for approval of the minutes?
Did anyone take a motion?
Oh, sorry, thank you. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I move to approve the minutes.
Second?
Thank
Roll
you.
call, please.
Commissioner Vartanian?
Yes.
Commissioner Vidor?
Yes.
Commissioner Garpetian?
Yes.
Commissioner Morgan?
Yes.
Madam Chair Shire?
Yes,
Thank you. To approve the minutes, thank you.
thank you. Item 4 is oral communications. This is communications limited to items not part of the agenda. Each speaker is limited to 5 minutes. The commission may question the speaker, but there will be no debate or decision. And today, we do not have any oral communications that are not related to agenda items. So we'll move on to number 5, comments from commissioners.
I'd like to make a little comment, but not so much as a commissioner, but as a private citizen. This was concerning last week's City Council. I would like to make a few brief comments concerning City Council's vote last Tuesday about 3901 San Fernando Road. Though the council listened to the debate concerning the building, I do not feel they heard what was presented. Otherwise, the vote should have gone the other way. That's as far as I will go, but I feel and know that the council made the wrong decision. I would like to thank all the brave citizens from the Glendale Historical Society who I felt appropriately fought for an important architectural guardian on San Fernando Road, especially Sean Purcell, who marshaled the troops against grave odds. On a happier note, tonight, the Historical Society of the Crescenta Valley is having their Christmas party potluck at the 100-year-old La Crescenta Women's Club. The theme this year is something historic, and they will have tables out to display items that bring back memories of times past. They will be serenaded by the Charismatics, Crescenta Valley High School's top vocal performing group. Bring something historic, and that could be me, that can be displayed on tables as well as food or dessert to share. It's at the La Crescenta Women's Club at the corner of La Crescenta and Piedmont. Please come. Thank you very much.
When is it?
Tonight,
Oh, it's
after this meeting, so you can follow me back up the canyon.
Thank you.
like on a short
Any
notice.
We got to speed up the meeting, I guess.
Yes.
Let's beat up. Tonight, I would like to, I've been given the article that was written about E.M. Bainbridge in 1930, and I would like to conclude the meeting in honor of his death in November 23rd, 1923. A little bit of history. The city of Glendale had an electric trolley line, and the trolley line ran up from basically Glendale and Broadway up to Montrose. But they decided that there were steam trains that were still coming into south of Glendale Avenue and Broadway, and they wanted to get rid of them, so they decided they would electrify the line basically from Glassell Park up to Broadway and Glendale. And one of the ways to do that was to electrify the line. The Union Pacific was the railroad that was decided to put up the wiring, and so since they were commissioned for it, they had a tower car that was up at Verdugo Park, and on November 30th, 1923, there were three men who worked for the Union Pacific, E.M. Bainbridge, R.E. Meade, and O.D. Annis, who went up and they took the electric freight motor and put it out onto the line, and behind it was a line car which basically had a tower on it, and it was powered. And they were going to take that and take it down below Broadway where there was no electrification and put up trolley wire. As they were pulling out the line car, they pulled it out, and then they were putting back the electric freight motor. Unfortunately, the line car had faulty brakes, and it took off with nobody on it. The three men jumped onto the brand-new electric freight motor, giving chase, and on the very front of the car was a gentleman by the name of E.M. Bainbridge. He had come from Texas. He was 20 years of age, and he stood basically in the very front of this line car, of the electric freight motor, and they chased it basically from Verdugo Park all the way down, going about 40 miles an hour, all the way to roughly Lexington and Glendale. At Lexington and Glendale, it was only a single track, and coming up the other way was a steam locomotive from the Union Pacific. And just about the moment that E.M. Bainbridge was going to be jumping, and literally he was on the front of the electric freight motor, he was about to jump. This steam engine coming the other way, he didn't see it. As he jumped onto the line car to pull down the cable which pulled down the power pole, which would have stopped the car, the line car crashed into the steam locomotive. At the same time, the electric locomotive giving him chase crashed into the back of the line car. So basically, the line car was crushed in between. E.M. Bainbridge was thrown from the car, and unfortunately, he broke 6 ribs and punctured his lungs and had all sorts of internal injuries. He was taken to the hospital which was Barron's Hospital, and unfortunately he died that day. He was considered in the newspapers at the time, the Glendale Evening News and the Glendale Daily Press, as being quite a hero. But as the years go on, history just kind of gets swallowed, and I found out about this story many, many years ago, about 1984, and I was always impressed by this E.M. Bainbridge, who was this 20-year-old who was jumping from, like you see in the movies, jumping from one electric car to another. And I finally tracked down that after he died, his body was shipped back to his family. He was an only child. He was the sole support of his parents. They put up a big monument in Leander, Texas, which is where he's buried. And I just always was a little sad that when you go past Lexington and Glendale, there's no mention of him at all. So last month was the 90th anniversary, and I'm the kind of person that likes to honor those kind of things. So I went and got some flowers and put up a little poster and had a small ceremony, basically. A ceremony of one, as they said in the newspaper. And I just, greater love hath no man that he laid down his life for his friends, and I just did. And it's been very nice. The newspaper put an article on it. They noticed that I had put up this poster in Verdugo Park and the whole thing, and I'm quite honored. And I'm quite honored that people have remembered him, even though it's been 90 years. His loss was a loss. It was a great thing for Glendale in a way that he was trying to do something that I thought was very honorable. But I'm glad that we're ending the meeting today in his honor. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Very nice.
Michael.
If I may?
Yes.
On a lighter note, as we're wrapping up the year, I just wanted to thank Jay and Christina and Eileen for the fabulous packets you put together for us each month during the year. It's a lot of work. There's a lot of research in there. The analysis, really helps us make sound decisions. And I'm sure I can speak for all of us that we really appreciate that. And Armina for keeping us, on track and organized throughout the course of the year. And my fellow commissioners, I really enjoy serving with all of you. It's always nice to serve with people who are so dedicated. And although we don't always agree, I think we approach things very rationally. And it's just nice to find that same passion amongst this group of people.
Thank you.
Thank you.
On behalf of Christina and Eileen.
Yes, thank you, staff.
What Lorna said is my comment.
Double
We
it.
all,
Double it.
we all agree. Thank you.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
I also echo Commissioner Vartanian's comments. I went to Hoover High School's annual tour of homes. They had 4 homes this year, and one of them was on the Glendale Registry. It's a great way of raising funds, and I want to thank the property owners and the homeowners to open their doors to public to come in and see their beautiful, magnificent homes. And I want to thank them. Also, I participated in Christmas parades. I was really hoping to have our commission be represented there, but it didn't work this year, hopefully next year. I want to thank the City of Glendale, Montrose, La Crescenta, and all the organizers for a great, great event. What I like about it, rain or shine, the parade goes on. So it was great, and we had a blast. I want to wish everyone Happy New Year and a Merry Christmas and Happy Hanukkah and everything else you celebrate. And I wish everyone a very safe and healthy year.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right. Any other comments? Okay, then we'll move to item 6, old business. 6A, 1440 North Maryland Avenue. This is a request by the owner for reconsideration of a proposed Mills Act condition.
Yeah, so I just wanted to introduce this, and then I will introduce Rusty Anderson, the owner, who will make a case for a change to one of the Mills Act conditions that was put onto the contract by the commission at the hearing. You heard this house just a few months ago, and just last Tuesday it was voted onto the register and voted to have a Mills Act contract by City Council. Rusty Anderson, the owner, has found a Mylar drawing that he had that wasn't available to the commission when we heard this the first time. And in that drawing, if you look at the house, it's very much built as you see it in the drawing. And if you remember, over here on the upper right, over the garage is where there was the sunroom kind of addition that had been made. And if you look on the left, you see this kind of almost like a shed structure. When you look at it in close-up, you see it's some sort of screened porch, whether it was a utility porch. Doesn't seem like it would have been a sleeping porch in that location, but it does appear to be a more simple wood structure with some screening in here. And when Rusty found this, he felt that this looked very similar to the addition that's on the house right now. The issue is the commission asked that the addition, which you see in this photograph, first from closer to the street where it's kind of tucked up along the side of the house. As you come closer, this is the addition we're talking about here, this one-story structure. It actually has similar proportions and a similar roof line to what we see in the original drawing. And the commission had asked that this have a hipped tile-clad roof put on top of it to match the upper roof of the house. And what the owner is requesting is that based on the similarity between this structure and what we see in the original drawing, that we remove that condition from the Mills Act. And staff is completely supportive of that. It does seem, when you look at this, it really is a utilitarian structure that's kind of tucked back along the side of the house. And putting a roof on it might even draw more attention to it than not having a roof on it. So we are recommending that we remove that condition from the Mills Act contract if the commission is interested in entertaining that. And with that, I'll just introduce Rusty, and he can share his thoughts with you.
Hello. Good evening.
Hello.
Thank you, Jay. I'm actually not sure what to add to that. It was pretty succinct and you spelled it out. But yeah, thank you for championing the Mills Act for this property. Yeah, I guess I feel like I'm redundant saying anything really, other than the other conditions seem to kind of make sense. And that one, I wasn't sure exactly where it was going, but I thought, after talking to Jay, that it seemed to sort of make sense to possibly leave it as is, because it seems to be sort of true to the original Mylar. Not sure what else to say. Is there any other questions or anything?
Do you know what age the Mylar is? I mean,
I don't. When I bought the house in 2002, the owner gave, or I don't know if he gave it to me or if it was just there, but it was came with the house when I bought it. And
There's no date on it, but it is by the original architect, so we presume that this is an early
it's
drawing.
about this. I didn't bring it with me. I probably should have, but it's about this big, a transparency, and
Well, the transfer had to be made, like, later than the 50s, because it was, if it's really Mylar.
I don't know that Mylar is the right word, but there were transparent drawing materials back then that you would ink onto kind of a clear drawing surface of some
I
kind.
thought maybe it was like.
It's possible that it was transferred from a blueprint, because I don't know exactly when that would have happened, so.
Yeah, I thought that's probably what happened, is maybe microfiche, or, I don't know the technologies, but that the original blueprint was made, however they did in the 20s, and then it was transferred, and
So at some point, this structure, this porch was demolished, and the utility
surface porch
or
utility.
storage or what have you, it
Yeah.
was built.
Yeah, well, when you look at them, they have some, the cornice line is very similar. I wonder if this is a kind of a reconfiguration of what was there. It doesn't seem quite as wide, looking at the drawing versus what's on
Yeah.
the wall. But that's also maybe somewhat altered. This up at the second floor was an addition made at the bathroom, if you remember from your tour.
Right.
Which also adds complications. If we were putting a roof on this, trying to put a roof that was going to fit around this would have been fairly complicated. So we don't know any of the history, except that it looks pretty similar in proportion and placement to the drawing.
Have any other questions? Thank you for bringing this forward. It's helpful information for us to see some of the original sketches and make a better informed decision.
Great, thank you
Oh, thank
for
you.
considering, yeah.
With that, we'll close the public session. Are there any comments among commissioners? I assume we need to
Yeah, this should have a vote.
vote for. Well, with this new information, I find this acceptable, and I think I was the one that had kind of recommended tying it in closer to the house. But this looks like a very original sketch and drawing, and I think I would find it acceptable then to leave it as is if you all agree.
I would support that.
I concur.
Okay.
So
Like to make a motion?
that
We
we,
remove this condition from.
Yeah, to remove the condition to put a new roof on the accessory structure. Sounds good.
I'll make
Fine.
that motion.
Okay. Second?
Roll call, please.
Sure. Commissioner Garpentian?
Yes.
Who was seconding? I'm sorry.
I second it.
Commissioner Vartanian?
Yes.
Commissioner Morgan?
yes.
Commissioner Vidor?
Yes.
Madam Chair Shire?
Yes.
Thank you. All in favor.
We have to emphasize how lucky Rusty is that the timing worked out, because we're
Yes.
taking the Mills contracts
Yeah.
to the recorder's office this week, so it just happened to work out, so.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you for finding.
Okay, next agenda item is 6B. This is 955 Rosemont Road, GR 73. This is an update on the solar panel installation.
Yeah, and I'm sure, I think everyone was here for this hearing. This was the solar panels going up on the roof of a Glendale Register property, a Mills Act property, and a Historic District property. And it's one of the rare opportunities that any design review board or authority in the city's going to be able to look at solar from a design perspective because of the State Solar Rights Act. I wanted to show this to you tonight because during the permitting process, we ran into a problem. So I want to share that, and you'll see what the problem is and see what the resolution is. We're not going to change anything, and I think it's still pretty much what the commission was expecting, but I just wanted to show this more. I think it's interesting if we ever get another application to think about what some of our options are. So this is Rosemount down here at the bottom, and the solar installation was going to be in two locations, on this south-facing slope of the roof here over the front facade, and then this east-facing slope over the side facade. And this drawing is a little skewed. This is the array along the front, and this is the array along the side. And when we were working with the building department on this, at some point, we were told that an 18-inch separation between the ridge and the top of the panels was acceptable as long as there were no panels on the other side of the ridge. It turned out that whoever said that was mistaken, and we took this up to the highest fire official, and we're told, no, it has to be 3 feet, even if there aren't. And so the whole issue here was we were hoping that these would be very invisible. We felt comfortable at 18 inches that they would be. 3 feet, we weren't sure. The good news is that it is almost completely invisible from here. In this photo, you can sort of, just skimming across the top here, you can see the edge of a panel. It's barely even visible looking at this closely. When you're at the front, though, There is visibility right in this location. So the left side of the panels, which were painted out in a color that very closely matches the tiles, and we were told at the hearing that that would be what they were going to do if there was any visibility. Interestingly, this bump out here is just about a foot deep, and you don't see anything beyond there. So it makes me think, we can use this as kind of a dimension that we might be able to work with in the future if we're trying to hide things. Coming around to the side of the house, this is when you're standing in front of the neighbor's house. We knew that this would be visible here, and they presented that they were going to be painting out the edge of the units, which they did. And then the place that we knew it was going to be most visible from the intersection of Loretto and Rosemount, it is visible. Maybe a little more visible than I was hoping for. But they did push this all the way down to the edge, and I think it's just because of the distance, the foreshortening, we don't see the upper part of the roof very well. In some ways, you don't even know where it is. You don't know which house it's on. But nonetheless, from the beginning, we knew this would be visible. I was most interested in sharing this because of what we see at the front and how painting out the edge really isn't a terrible solution. But this house is in such a unique setting because it's a tall house set up on the hill.
Right.
We're not going to have this in a lot of other places. And given the number of solar installation trucks that I see in the garage coming in and out every day, I know we're going to get a lot more of these over time. And we're not going to have much opportunity to do any design review except to try to, as we were told by the state, we can try to cajole people to do something better, but we can't make them do it. So I just wanted to share that and see if you had any thoughts or...
Sorry. Go ahead. Some companies are coming up with different color combinations, so you can match the roof tiles that you have. Like if you have an old Spanish roof, it's like reddish color, so it won't be as visible. Because
So for the top surface of the panel?
Right.
Yeah,
right.
that's great.
Like windows, you have different colors. They're coming up with this different color panel, so you can match your existing roof, so it's not as visible. Because when you have this dark black panels on a red roof, it's more visible. So that will be an option for us to entertain in the future, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. We're going to try to work with people. So far, we've had several installations in districts, and except for this one, they've always been on rear-facing slopes or off of an alley not far from one of the commissioners' houses in Rossmoyne. We put one up that you don't really see from the street at all. So that's our goal, but we're not allowed to force anything.
So for the future reference, fire department requires 3 feet from the edge of the...
From the ridge down to the top of each panel.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
I had a quick question.
Oh, go ahead.
I know when we had the original discussion, we had some discussion about things that are visually impactful like this, and there could be other things as well, being notifiable, as in like the 300-foot notification thing, and whether or not that was, there was a discrepancy between how like a design review board modification would be handled versus a historic preservation type modification, and has there been any follow-up on that?
Yeah, well, we're noticing design review hearings, so the hearing tonight for the 403 South Central was publicly noticed.
Okay.
in a
Oh,
500-foot
okay. Yeah, I
radius.
was going to ask about that too.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, we received no comment.
okay. So for something like this in the future, it would be noticed
Yeah,
officially.
just,
to the-
historically we've played it a little looser than we should have under the code, so we're going to definitely make sure we follow that.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to item number 7, new business. 7A, it's 1411 North Central Avenue. And this is a Glendale Register nomination and a Mills Act application. Staff report.
Good evening, members of the Commission. I have for your consideration today a nomination for the Glendale Register Historic Resources, 1411 North Central Avenue, Glendale Register nomination and Mills Act application. 1411 North Central Avenue is a Spanish colonial revival house designed built in 1927, located in the Verdugo Viejo neighborhood of Glendale. It's located at the intersection of Central Avenue and Spencer Street. The architect of the house was Ben Sherwood, known in Los Angeles for his very picturesque and fanciful interpretations of period revival styles. His most famous work is probably the bungalow court in Los Feliz known as the Disney Court or Snow White Cottages. A number of Disney animators resided in these cottages during the time of the making of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, and so it's believed that they took some inspiration from the design and look and feel of these. These houses can actually also be seen in the movie Mulholland Drive. That's a lesser-known fact. So this is but important, yes. Ben Sherwood also designed the Spanish Colonial Revival house at 1345 Cordova. This house was built 1 year later, in 1928, and I think you can sort of see the similar design elements and architecture here, including the tower and the fireplace. Also, I should mention that this house is on the Glendale Register. I don't know the name, or I'm sorry, the number, but 90 is designated in 2011.
It was called the Gray Sherwood House by the Commission at the time.
Okay, so going back to 1411 North Central, this house was one of the highlights on the Glendale Historical Society's 2012 home tour. The original owner of the home was Eugene Weaver, an executive with the Ben-Hur Coffee Company. Weaver was married with 2 sons, one of whom grew up to be a well-known landscape architect in Glendale. He was responsible for the landscape grounds of many of the houses on Royal Boulevard. So Ben-Hur was a pretty big name in coffee in the early part of the 20th century. It was headquartered in the John Parkinson-designed Joannis Brothers building, which was recently featured on the LA Conservancy's Arts District tour. I just really like this image. This is over at Wilshire and North Stanley in the 1930s. This, of course, as you know, is an example of programmatic or mimetic architecture. So this is Mr. Weaver kind of showing off his coffee roasting facility. These photos were taken in 1935. The facility was pretty top-notch, and the company utilized all of the latest innovations, vacuum-packed coffee canisters and drip brewing system, which I've read that he was responsible for inventing that system, but I think it's probably likely he was maybe in charge of the people who invented it. There was nothing to suggest that he himself was down in the trenches. Going back to the house itself, 1411 North Central consists of a series of rectangular and one cylindrical volume, forming an asymmetrical U shape around a central courtyard. The house is clad with smooth stucco and covered with red clay tile gables, hips, and sheds. The cylindrical entry tower, with its battered walls and colorful tile work, is the most eye-catching element of the house. It features a heavy arched wood-paneled door set within a stucco arch. The second story has a band of wood divided-like casement windows set within stucco segmental arches. The arches are separated by short, engaged Corinthian colonnettes that feature kind of this interesting circular pattern. At the Spencer Street facade, there's a covered patio enclosed by a low stucco-clad wall. The wall extends all the way to the arcade that connects the main house with the 2-story garage. The garage has original arched wood-paneled doors set within stucco arches supported by tiled bases. Overhanging the garage doors is a wood sleeping porch. This is over on the other side of the house. The Central Avenue facade has a small terrace enclosed by a low crenellated stucco-clad wall. The French doors are set, again, within a segmental arch edged with decorative tile. This, to me, is one of the more charming parts of this house, this interior courtyard, which is surrounded by walls on 3 sides. Some of the features include a brick and stucco fountain and 2 outdoor fireplaces. Overlooking the courtyard is a second-story wood balcony. The one major addition that we know of is this second-story, what is now sort of this storage area at the rear of the house. In the 1940s, when it was built, it was something like a sunroom. This is what the county recorder's, county assessor's records said. It was built probably around 1944, and at the time, it was a flat-roofed structure, and so at some point between then and now, it became closer to the design of the main house with the roof, clay tile-clad roof, and stucco cladding. What's interesting about this is the the window and the door, which are no longer in use. Obviously, that door opened out onto a balcony of some sort. It looks like this patio cover that you see today wouldn't be structurally sound enough to support any kind of weight, and so there's probably a different type of structure when it was originally built. This patio cover looks to be later, definitely not original, maybe 1940s or later. Here's some closer photos of the addition. You can see that notch in the wall where there's something definitely a little bit different. So the basement is partially below grade. It looks like there are a couple replacement windows here, and the door is covered by this kind of interesting stucco embrasure. It's covered with this short gabled roof. Some of the other interesting character-defining features of the house include these painted wood doors that have the ring pulls and these original wrought iron light fixtures. So there's a fairly small amount of information known about Sherwood's career, surprisingly, because, I think his work is really loved in this city, but we don't know very much about him. Later on into the 1950s, he did continue to work as a building contractor, but he definitely didn't continue to design in sort of this storybook fashion. But his work is clearly that of a talented designer, and so we felt that this house embodies elements of the Spanish colonial revival style. This house, I think, is probably one of the more interesting and definitely fanciful interpretations of the style in Glendale. The nomination suggested that the house is significant under Criterion 2 for its association with its first owner, Eugene Weaver. To me, even though it's clear that he was a very successful businessman and made a lot of contributions to maybe the world of coffee, it wasn't clear enough based on the research from the nomination and also outside staff research that it would rise to the level of significance called for in this criterion. So based on that, staff recommends to the Historic Preservation Commission that this house be recommended to City Council for designation as the Weaver House. Be something like Glendale Register 105 if designated.
You.
May I ask a question? I think there was a few conditions.
Oh, yes.
Do you want to cover those?
Yeah. The first condition is to repair the deteriorated wood window and door at the second floor. Back to this. The condition would be to remove the paint on the glass, and if the window and the door are going to remain unused, to use sort of a back paint in order to give it sort of a reflective surface that you don't see right now. Second is to paint the vent at the roof above the garage to better match the color of the roof tiles.
Don't worry.
And the final recommendation is to restore the courtyard fountain to operating condition.
Yeah, the fountain is, I was there yesterday, the fountain is working.
Is it working? Okay.
Okay, we weren't sure.
Yeah. Has a really nice sound to it, too.
Okay, we'll get rid of that one.
It was just being cleaned. I didn't realize it should have been on when she walked. But yes, it's working.
Cool.
Okay, we have 2 speakers on this property, so I will open up the public hearing to invite Tim Gregory.
Hello, hi.
Hello.
I prepared the history and the applications for this house, and just from the architectural description, hearing it again, I can get the feeling of what a remarkable example of a custom-made Spanish colonial house this is. The architect, Ben Sherwood, as you heard, was very well known for his highly decorative and well-designed residential architecture. He really did himself with this one. It has all the usual bells and whistles of a Spanish colonial with its tiling and molded plastic work and deeply inset windows, wood accents, colonnades, hoods over the windows, all those things that you see in Spanish colonial. But there's some elements that really stand out. As I think the entry tower is really something unique that you don't see. You see entry towers, but nothing quite so grand as that, with all the tiling and the engaged posters around the top. I also was taken with the balcony over the garage, which is kind of Islamic in style, integrating a lot of different Spanish in this house. And then, of course, the interior courtyard is something special, too. It has not one but 2 outdoor fireplaces. And just to me, from the street and just touring the house as I did, it really stood out in my mind. And we've all seen a lot of Spanish colonial revival houses, but this one sticks in my mind.
Thank you. And our second speaker, Francis Mirada Chavez.
Thank you. I want to say my husband would be here, but he was called to Dallas. UPS has 2 million packages stuck in Dallas. So anyhow, with that being said, 15 years ago, I walked into this home on a house, and my breath was taken away. 15 years later, it does. Every single day, I walk in and I feel so blessed that my husband and I have been able to acquire this house, and and that's what we want to, we believe that we're the curators of this home, that we're lucky enough. We hope that our children will perhaps raise their children, but if not, we definitely want to, be assured that the integrity of this home. So, that being said, we've always wanted to share this home with the community. Asked several years back to be on the Hoover, where we absolutely did it, and then a couple of years ago on the. That's what we feel. We love sharing this home, and very blessed, and want to maintain integrity. So, thank you for your. I want to address a couple of things, specifically this that was recommended to repair. We've always been kind of puzzled of why was this door and window there. Arlene came on Saturday, and then yesterday I showed the other side of this door. This room is a bedroom or an office that we use now, and there's a closet there. Stucco there, so to get through it, other than tearing it down, and as she said, it's really not a balcony or a terrace that would sustain any type of weight. So in reviewing, and I'm not set in stone on this, but one of the ideas I thought would be to this wall to just basically cover it up, so basically to go over it, patch it up, and I don't know if the right word is stucco or whatever, but continue this wall and just enclose it, and then have to paint the entire back panel to match the rest of the house to do that, versus the recommendation of opening up the windows and all that stuff. Because even if we open it up, it's a closet, so the other side, the other side isn't anything to look at, if that makes sense. So, I mean, that's one of the things I was thinking, unless you guys think of something else that makes sense. But I'm in agreement that it should be fixed, and so let's try to figure out how to do that, because it's always been a puzzle to us. And the other two things, absolutely, painting the cover, and then, as he said, the fountain is working. And, we're just constantly, every week in, week out, we're always tinkering in the house, and we're always doing something. I don't know if the recommendation comes today of what to do with this, but I'm open to suggestions and ideas, and I'm on the same page that we would like to get it fixed.
Great.
Thank you, Jay,
Thank
for
you.
your consideration and everything. Is there anything else I need to add?
Are there any questions while she's here?
I just have a quick question. I apologize. I was not able to come on the tour this past weekend. I am familiar with your home. I've been through it on more than one occasion. So you're saying if we were to open that door, we'd be stepping into a closet? Is that what I'm hearing? Or
Stepping into a wall.
A drywall.
okay, so it's the back wall. Okay, so there's just wall behind it.
Yeah. Arlene, I took Arlene upstairs and you as well, so I could show you exactly. It's a closet. So we would have to actually break it. There's a wall there.
Right. Okay. Okay, so it was just walled behind the window and the
Yeah,
door.
and it doesn't, I think it would actually just look better if it was smoothed and just covered entirely. And like I said, I'm willing to paint the whole back panel to make matches.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I have a question from staff.
Okay. Then thank you. We'll close the public hearing.
Thank you.
Do we have any old photographs of this property? Anything that
Not
goes?
that I've seen, yeah.
Because there are some hooks on the front of the property, and I don't know if there were awnings there before, and it wraps around the front and
And they're
over
the
the
windows?
entrance as well.
Oh, I see what you're saying over
Right. I don't.
the left-hand window there.
Yes, and it wraps around the front of the property. I don't know if there were awnings there before or.
Yeah, my guess
those
would be
hooks
either
were-
awnings
That's
or
what I'm
sometimes
thinking.
they have these cool things on some Spanish houses, these solar curtains that are like exterior curtains. I don't think you would put that up on the second, well, that is a balcony,
where you
so you could
typically
get
see
to
it.
it, yeah. Yeah, so it's possible that there were something.
Because either they have to remove it or do something with those hooks to add an awning to it or whatever that has to be done. And
Yeah, it's the sort of thing where, it's kind of speculative, unless we found a photo to see what was there, but
So we don't have anything
It seems
that-
there was something there. I think it's okay to, abandon them in place so that we remember that there was something there, and if the owner ever decided to put up some sort of treatment, we could work with those.
Okay.
Yeah.
And also, can you go back to that photograph of the closed window and door? Right. I went through the house as well. It's a beautiful house. I think what happened here, I don't know, I was thinking about this, how this is like a mystery. I think when they made this addition, there was no closet in the beginning, and they put up the door and the window, and that structure will not hold any decking, so probably it was one of those railings or the balconies, the pre-made iron balconies that was installed in front of the door. Most probably, I don't know, but what to do with it today, I don't know if you take it out and stucco the whole thing, how's it going to look? We don't know that. But I think it would be less expensive and easier for you to just cut the drywall from inside. I know it's a closet. You can cut the drywall from inside, repair everything from the outside. I mean, when we say repair, removing the paint and this is open for discussions for sure, and painting around the windows, the wood portion of it, and maybe you can install a railing similar to what you have to the left in front of the door, and from inside you can still use it as a closet. They can always have window covering to just cover it, so it won't affect your closet. But it would be easier for you to redo it from the inside and cut the door and the window from the drywall from the inside of the closet than trying to just take this out and redo the whole thing from the outside. And I don't know if they stuck with the whole thing, that face, I don't know how massive or bulky would that look.
Mm-hmm.
Any other thoughts or comments?
Well,
It's pretty bad. It's probably, it's cracked. I think with fillers and proper treatment, it would be salvageable the way it is. You know, on our end, we think it's probably better to keep it as it is, as a record of what happened at the house, rather than stuccoing over it. And I also think it would be hard to stucco over it. We'd take all of that out and build the structure you'd need and then do the stuccoing without affecting the closet wall anyways. But the ideal situation would be to get it so that we could back paint the glass so that the glass would still have its kind of reflectivity. An alternate solution would be to paint out the glass as a different color, but I think that would look kind of cartoonish.
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
But if you remove the paint, you're going to see the framing and the drywall inside. That's the other
No, yeah, we definitely don't want to have. We suspected that something. I hadn't been inside to see why this was done, but I suspected it was to hide something that no one wanted to see, the back of this wall. So we'd have to do something, either back painting glass. I've heard of some people putting, a curtain or something in that kind of dead space, but how long is that going to look good? It's kind of tricky, but it does seem approaching it through the closet wall might be the best way to go.
When you say back painted glass, what kinds of a reflection? What color is it? Is it just like...
You usually use kind of a gray color
Okay.
that kind of lets it becomes a neutral. I've seen different colors of back painted glass.
Okay.
What you want to avoid is making it too much of a mirror-like finish. If you painted it black, it would get really reflective. So you find a tone that works, and we could experiment and find something that you were happy with.
Yeah, I mean, if
They actually, yeah. Oh, sorry. So that would be kind of our recommended alternative, but
But that would require them going to the closet itself and
Right.
cutting. Okay.
yeah. And we have to remember this is a Mills Act application. And
Yeah.
Right.
we've asked for a lot more from other
Yes.
owners.
for replacing the glass to cut? I don't think they need to cut it. They just these are installed with the putty on the outside. They can remove the putty and remove the glass. They don't have to go inside the closet and break. I think if they have somebody, they can take a look at it and see what they can do.
Yeah, I think we could look at different solutions. You're right. It's possible that it could be done that way. Probably hard to do, but possible.
Okay.
So would we want to consider, I know it's a record of what was there at some point in time, and I think it's a mystery. It's always been a mystery to me, too.
It's like
and
a Winchester
just-
mystery.
But with the consideration of adding sort of a wrought iron, sort of the faux balconette, would that,
Secretary of the
something we-
Interior wouldn't love that solution because
Okay.
it's adding a layer of history that's speculative, and we don't know what really happened there. My guess for a door like that, it doesn't look like the kind of door that you typically open onto a Juliet balcony. It looks like a door that you would have stepped out onto something. And whether that was a balcony or something raised up on posts, it's kind of hard to say. But
yeah, no, I wasn't trying to suggest that that's what was there, but it's just the door leading to nowhere, but maybe that's just a personal,
Yeah, it's kind of, You guys have purview to make any condition you want, but because it is such a weird feature, and it does tell the story, like, okay, there was something else here in the past, and we don't know exactly what it is, I think leaving it open is probably the better
option.
solution. Yeah.
Okay, better solution. Well, I'm just going to go ahead and say that long before I got to meet your husband, one of the owners, I would admire this house. I don't live far, and I admired this house for years and years. And then I got to meet Jose just through some community activities. And I've been through your house on both tours, the Hoover and the Glendale Historical Society. And it is, I mean, I don't think, I don't want to speak for my colleagues, but I don't think any of us would disagree or say that this isn't one of the more spectacular homes we have in Glendale as a historic, record of the period revival styles that were being built, again, in a very special sort of whimsical manner with a lot of detail by Sherwood. And I do know that both of you are very committed, as you mentioned, as being conservators of the home, and I know that you feel that, it should be shared with the community, and you've already done that on 2 occasions, and I really appreciate that, and I'm sure the community does as well. So I fully support the nomination. Again, not having been able to visit the property to look at it from the perspective of, Mills Act considerations and any additional work that might need to be done. Would this, would a Mills Act on this fall under the requirement for the home inspection?
Not officially yet.
Okay.
We've got to get that moving. So.
Okay. Okay, so I guess I'm going to have to rely on my
14
colleagues.
should be
so
the
I'm
year
not
for that to
sure
kind of get enacted.
Arlene?
Just Arlene, and
Vartan.
you visited too,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Okay. And then again, we have our photographs. So, but yeah, those are, my comments. I guess I agree with the suggestion for the door leading to nowhere for now.
It's a mystery house. I don't think it's a huge problem to bring it back to the original condition. The window and the door, it won't be that big of a deal. I don't think it's that big of an issue. It could be done.
Okay. Thank you very much, Francis. I think your family stewardship of the house is wonderful, and I completely agree that this is worthy of landmarking. Often I've had a debate with myself whether our big plethora of Spanish colonial revival houses should all be landmarked or landmark worthy, and certainly this one rises to that level for its grand location, for starters, and then for the beautiful tower and structure and elevations of the house. It certainly is distinctive and worthy. I think there are a couple things regarding the hooks. I noticed the same thing in the front, and I think that either we should verify what was there and recreate it, or take the hooks off and fill in. I realize they're a residual of something historical, but they're kind of unsightly the way they are. So if we can't verify and recreate what was there, I would recommend that we take them off and patch. Regarding, there was one gutter downspout that looked like it might have been rotting. I know you did a very nice job with your window restoration, but there were some sills on, I can't remember which elevation it was. It's overlooking the courtyard. There were some window sills that looked like they were very badly peeling, and they look like there may be some rot there. So please just take a look at those. Unfortunately, I can't remember exactly what you remember, though. And then that one downspout that looked like there may be a water issue, if in fact it is rotting, so there may be the need for a replacement there. There was also one casement window that we looked at together that looked like it had some exposed caulking or something, that white strip that wasn't finished, so that needs to be finished out. Let's see. Yeah, there's an inoperable air conditioning unit in one of the windows as well that you're going to remove and replace the pane that is out as a result of that. So if you could just take care of that air conditioning unit and get rid of that, that would be great. On the first floor, the French doors, which are so beautiful, the window lights have what looks like green paint sort of bleeding into the window spaces. And, it really needs somebody to take a razor to it more than anything else. It's, there's nothing terribly wrong with it. It's just, those French doors are so beautiful that I think it just needs to be cleaned up a little bit. And it's those are very visible doors. And then regarding that strange closet situation, you've got that doorway to nowhere with what looks like the remainders of a facade, or not a facade, a deck, or a little balcony. If you look at it, like right below the door threshold, there's that line there. Mm-hmm. Below that, I don't know what that is and whether that can be obliterated, but...
It could be painted. That might be a part of an old flashing or something.
Yeah, okay.
Or something.
I'm just... I agree with what the comments about that probably stuccoing over isn't the way to go, although that seems like the neatest solution. I mean, if that was architecturally sound, I would vote for that one. But I like the other idea about recreating the look of the window and the door, but I'm not sure how that's going to look, and I don't understand completely the concept of back painting or what you described. My concern is that it's just going to look weird, or phony or something. And, if I can understand a little better or have some assurance that it's going to, recreate the look of the other things, then I'd go for that one.
Another alternative would be to repair the wood and repaint it so that it looks like this and kind of blends away a little bit, drawing less attention to
You mean
itself.
just have it blanked out like that and just...
It's not my preference, but
Or have the
it's a
glass
solution we
painted,
didn't-
leave the glass as it is.
So the glass...
Well, I was thinking just paint it monochromatically. That would be one option. We mentioned the option of painting the glass a different color on the outside surface, but I think that would look kind of cartoonish.
Right.
Yeah, I think
My preferred option would be back painting the glass.
I think that's the best solution, because if you have a clear glass, then you will see the framing inside.
You're
and
going to see
it's not
the
very
back wall of the closet.
Right.
So back painting, it's done with reflective paint, or...
It's just regular paint. It just
Oh.
makes it opaque, but
Okay.
it allows the glass to still look like glass. It reads as glass. And then if you choose the right color, I've seen it done really well in
Okay.
places where, if you look at it, you see what's happening, but when you're skimming over it, you don't really notice it.
Okay, I would go for that idea if, I'm not knowledgeable about this and I don't think I've ever seen it. Or maybe it was so good I didn't know it was back painted, but, as long as it doesn't make you want to roll your eyes, I
If you
think
think
that's a
of
reasonable solution.
If you think of the green glass over at the First Fidelity building, which is the spandrel glass underneath the windows, which is shiny and looks like glass, but you can't see through it, it would be like that, except a more neutral color.
Sounds okay to me. I just, obviously, I think, I don't know what your feeling is about, I think there were only two of us who saw the thing in person.
Right.
It just seems like that's not really elegant, but it's not very
Painted glass. The painted glass is like, if you have a clear glass, but you have one of those window coverings that it rolls down, so you won't see inside, but you can tell there is something. But it's pretty much the same effect.
Right.
If you have window, even if they keep the clear glass, they have to have some covering from inside because they have a closet behind it. So
Okay.
I think the back painted glass would be a
Okay.
good
Okay.
solution for it.
Sounds an acceptable solution that's proven to work, so. What about that emphasized line that looks like a vestigial support for the balcony that's right below the door.
Yeah, I wrote out,
Any way to,
that we'd investigate what it is, but we'd try to paint it out
Okay.
so that it would just match the wall.
okay. And the fountain looked fine.
What we'll do is, this is, now that we're doing design review here, or
Totally.
thinking about it, I'll go through, and I want to hear if any other commissioners have any thoughts, and then we'll run down the list and see if we have agreement on these things, and then we can make them conditions, obviously, for the contract, so.
I have a couple
I'm
comments.
sorry,
Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, you can finish.
The vent over that we wanted to paint, what color do we want them to paint it? We have to,
Kind of a
match
terracotta
the
red
roof?
to match the roof, yeah. Just kind of jumps
she
out
was
right
asking
now.
me yesterday, I said, we will discuss it and give you an answer. Matching the roof is a good idea. Sorry.
Well, I just wanted to say to the homeowner, thank you very much for bringing this before us. It's a beautiful, beautiful home. I've admired it for many years. And unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to come this weekend with my double and triple booked schedule for the holidays. So I apologize. Would love to come see it at another time. But while I have the chance, I also want to say thank you so much for the beautiful nativity scene that you have on your front yard every year. I have loved that life-size setup and admire that as well on your front yard. I really appreciate the detail of the other commissioners, and those of you who got to go just to take a look, because I had a few questions from the photos. I agree with the staff's conditions, and also wanted to ask a question about the basement windows. It said that they were replacements, and I can't tell from the photos, are they replacements that are in fitting and in keeping with the house, or should those be replaced to really match the style as we've required on most other Mills Act homes?
They're single pane windows, so they don't quite match everything. They kind of read a little differently because they're down at the basement, but you can see just to the left, there's an older window.
Yeah.
Which could be used as a model.
Yeah.
I don't know, the long, wide rectangular window, we'd have to look at a little more carefully. That's kind of unusual.
Yeah, I'd like those, again, since there's a Mills Act contract being considered, for that to be in the work plan. I think we've required that of all other homes, and I think for consistency, that would be wise, and it would only just improve the back facade. Regarding the upper addition, yeah, I agree with the best solution, I think, at the time is to really kind of bring back the door and window as much as we can with, painting it out and removing the painting on the glass. The offer of the homeowner to fill that in, I think, if you look at the whole facade, it's not what would have been done as far as the beauty of the asymmetrical design of Spanish-style homes. It would create much too large of a solid wall there with one window kind of jammed to the side, very edge of that back facade, so I don't think that's the appropriate solution. I think for now, the best solution is to, bring back the door and window as much as possible. On that facade, if you look at the close-up picture, it's called second floor rear addition. Maybe it's your next slide. At the top of the roof line, I can't tell, and again, I didn't get to go in person. Is there some kind of water damage or bubbling to the stucco that we should be concerned about right under the eaves, or is that just discoloration of the stucco or paint? I think it should be looked at, especially if the inspection isn't included on this.
Yeah, and you're
Looks
talking
like
about
property.
the kind of darker divots
Yeah.
at the header, at the head of the windows?
Yeah, I couldn't tell what's causing either
Yeah,
that.
it almost looks like schmutz, but I don't know.
So
Very
anyway,
well
you might
patterned.
I would just hope it's not, interior, like water leaking or something that's causing the stucco to bubble, because it definitely looks like a different texture, and maybe it's in the photo just because it's dirty. I don't know. If staff could look at that, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And then regarding the front house where the hooks were referred to, typically in the Spanish architecture I've seen that has like the French doors opening up with the iron detailing lower, wouldn't have an awning on it because it would really almost conceal that entire opening. It would have been the draperies, like you talked about, Jay, like the solar draperies, that you'd have a drapery rod going across there with draperies hanging to the left and right, really more kind of decorative, or potentially, I guess, you could use them. I would either recommend just leaving the hooks as they are, not removing them, and then maybe in time consider putting a drapery rod and draperies back. I think that would have been the only original design solution, or use, I should say, for those hooks. I don't see those being an awning, because proportion wouldn't be correct for the covering of that window with the iron at the base.
Yeah, it would also detract from the tower.
Yeah,
top
yeah.
there.
So those are my comments, and I'm excited to have the opportunity to preserve this for many years to come.
Okay, do you want me to read back some of these
Yeah.
potential conditions, and
Great.
we'll just make sure? It sounds like there's a consensus in terms of the door-window issue at the second floor to repair that as best as possible, whether that means removing the closet wall or not. We can work either way, whatever works. Find a good tone to backpaint the glass. We've heard two different thoughts about the hooks in terms of leaving them in place, removing them, or possibly restoring a drapery curtain or drapery rod. So I want to discuss that. Commissioner Vidor noted some deterioration conditions that we didn't put into the staff report, so we could add several of these to the conditions, which would include check the sills to verify that they're properly painted and not rotted, and repair as necessary and repaint. Identify a downspout that possibly is leading some water issues and have that repaired. The casement window with the white strip, Arlene, do you remember where that was, more or less?
We'll have to open
I
the
think
public hearing.
Francis does, but
Well, we'll work
describe
on it.
it.
We'll put it in as a condition, and
That's
then
where it
we'll
is.
work together to. So get rid of this white strip, whatever's causing that. Remove the window AC unit and replace glass in that location. It sounds like some paint scraping probably at some of the French doors is what's necessary there to get some of the overlap off the glass. And then just below the door at the second floor wall, where there's either a flashing or some sort of mastic, that would be painted out to match the wall. Commissioner Shire asked that the basement windows be replaced, the 3 basement windows be replaced to better match the historic windows. Staff will verify whether there's any, and we'll probably do this before we write the conditions, because these won't go till December 2014. We'll verify if there's any plaster damage at the rear windows adjacent to the second floor door. And then that brings us back to the hook issue. So that seems to be the only issue without consensus.
Other thoughts? Let's give Jay an answer on the hooks, and what, do we leave them as is? Do we patch them? What are other commissioners'
I
thoughts?
think my thought, go ahead.
So,
I think my thought would be to leave them, again, as sort of a nod to what might have been there or would have been there. I recently found out when going through a set of photographs from when the Ross Moyne neighborhood was being built out in the 1920s. I had always wondered if the curtains on the exterior of homes was common in the 20s. I didn't really know. But in some of the old photographs when Ross Moyne neighborhood was being built out, you can clearly see the rods with the curtains. So again, I think I would agree that that's probably what was there. Now, whether or not we want to ask that those be brought back at some point in time, or if we just want to leave the hooks there just to know that they may have been there at some point in time. I'd be interested to hear what my colleagues have to say.
well, I'd like to say that I agree with everything that Commissioner Vidor has said concerning this, except for the hooks themselves. I think if you remove them and you find out later that they should have been there, then they're gone. I would rather leave them and figure out what was there and maybe put it back, and rather than. But I thank Commissioner Vidor for all of the stuff and that she's done, all of the things that I think the House needs. That I agree with everything she said except that one item.
Okay, I'll make my pitch again. The hooks are not particularly elegant or decorative looking. They clearly served a purpose at one time, and there was something there. They look pretty, can't think of the right word to use, but they don't, they really look not good. They don't complement the beautiful front face of this house to be there. So I think part of the Mills Act has to be either to bring back whatever was there, if those hooks are to remain, and make use of them, or take them off, one or the other, because they, they don't even look like period hooks that, like a wrought iron thing or something that was holding, a very elegant, worthy awning or curtain or protector. They're just sitting there. They're a little bit deformed. They're not in good shape. So I think we need to make a decision about an either-or plan. You make use of them, do something with them, or get rid of them, one or the other. And, I'm perfectly okay with them staying, but staying that way without being used, they just detract from the appearance of the house. So it's one or the other.
If we added a decorative rod, which typically the hooks would be fairly utilitarian from what I've seen, and the rod would actually have the beautiful finials or some kind of decoration to them on the homes I've seen on those exterior curtains. Would these hooks look like that's what it would have held, or it could hold a rod?
Yeah, they do.
Yeah? Okay.
Really? Okay.
They're kind of a place. They're tilted right now. They can secure them and
So
paint
they just
them
need
to
to-
match. Yeah, to match the color of the house, and you add the decorative rods. You don't want to go too over the board with the rods, because then it would add another detail that wasn't there, and we're not sure what it was.
Right.
I think leaving the hooks at this time, I don't see the negative part of it. They can always
Should be
figure
an
out.
action plan, I think.
I'll go with
How many
that.
One or the
conditions are we talking about? How many windows were they on?
Well, that one.
Two or
the
three,
one
also along.
to the left of the tower, and then
Or to see if they're on the north side or not.
Most
Maybe
of them
not.
are behind those trees that you can't even see. I had to pick through it to see it, but the one in the front is well visible. The one to the right.
One option would be to kind of vote tonight on the conditions we've spoken about, and whether you want to recommend this for the Glendale Register and the Mills Act, and we could bring it back for a subsequent hearing just to fine-tune the Mills Act conditions and possibly add or subtract or rethink this condition based on everyone having a chance to really go look at it.
Yes.
And,
Yes.
That'd be good.
okay. But I wouldn't want to delay the vote on the
No.
hearing.
No,
so-
no, no.
I think we can vote if that was the last.
Yes.
No, Jay, I just wanted to, did we say that there are no older photographs of the home? We don't have any pictures of
seen
the
any.
home. No.
Okay, they're not out there.
On the Sherwood Gray home, do we know if there's any such detail with rods
go
or
back to
curtains, or did we have any old photographs that you recall that might
I
have?
don't think we had old photos of that one either. It's pretty rare that we get those, but every so often.
Right.
There are drapery rods, the two windows to the right of the door at the second floor.
Right.
We could look to even see if the
Yeah.
hooks that are on this house are similar to
Similar.
those, and then we'd know
The
what
detail
an
of
appropriate
those
rod would
rods
look like.
versus the iron. Yeah.
That would be great.
Okay, the one thing we don't want to do, we have to remember the lesson of the Sherwood Gray, or the Gray Sherwood house, that we probably shouldn't name houses after architects, because at the time that was the only Sherwood we knew was in Glendale, and now we know there's this one and maybe even another. So that's the lesson I take from this.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, with that, do we have a motion with the conditions stated?
Yours. You should. Should.
Okay.
No, you should.
I make a motion that, is there a written motion?
Yeah, I'm sorry we didn't do it this time.
Oh, dear me, okay. I make a motion that we recommend to City Council that, what's the address? 1411 North Central be accepted to the Glendale Register of Historic Resources, and that we approve the Mills Act application with the conditions as noted, with the one condition discussed regarding the hooks to be followed up later.
Is there a second?
I second.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Vidor,
Yes.
Commissioner Morgan,
Enthusiastically, yes.
Commissioner Garpetian,
Yes.
Commissioner Vartanian,
Enthusiastically, yes.
and Madam Chair Shire.
Yes.
Voted unanimously. Yes.
Thank you.
Beyond you now.
Congratulations. Thank you
Partially
again.
enthusiastic. And then we'll try to arrange, if possible, for this to come back in January.
Great.
That
Great.
works.
Thank you.
Okay, next on the agenda, item 7B. This is 403 South Central Avenue. This is a Glendale Register property number
Do you want to sit
89.
there?
And this is a review of proposal for additional wireless telecommunication equipment on the roof. And with that, we'll have staff report.
Yes, Commissioners and Madam Chair, this proposal is to install wireless telecommunication equipment and antennas on the roof of a building that's a historic resource in Glendale. The proposal will be reviewed eventually by the Planning Commission and voted on, but before that, because the building is listed as a historic resource, the Historic Preservation Commission will be reviewing the proposal and making a recommendation with respect to the historic aspect to the Planning Commission. Very briefly, the building is located at 403 South Central Avenue. It's a tall building built in the early 1920s in the utilitarian Art Deco style. The building does not have much in terms of embellishments, but it's a very boxy, simple outline building. The building has a tall, as you can see in the lower elevation, the building has a tall portion that is located at the intersection of Central and I believe it's Elk Avenue.
Yes.
And it extends further west along Elk Avenue with a lower portion. On the roof of the building extend a stair tower and an elevator shaft. The equipment, the antennas would be located on the stair tower, on the vertical walls of the stair tower. The equipment would be located on the flat roof portion of the building. Most of the equipment cabinets would be located at a height at or below the building, the parapets of the building. 4 equipment cabinets would be a little taller than the top of the parapet. Staff's overall assessment is that the relative scale of the equipment cabinet that would be visible from street elevations or some other higher elevations would not be so significant as to compete with the simple massing of the building. And on top of that, the antennas are proposed to be painted a color to match the walls against which they will be mounted, and they would not be very conspicuous. And also the antennas, the top of the antennas will be mounted below the top level of the parapet. So it's staff's assessment, based on the fact that the visible cabinets would not be competing with the aesthetics of the building, the simplicity of the building, and because the entire installation is entirely reversible and would not cause permanent damage to the building. Based on these criteria, staff's recommendation is to approve the proposal, or actually to recommend approval of the proposal to the Planning Commission, with a condition to paint any part of the visible cabinets, including the antennas, which are already proposed to be painted, and any visible cabling, a color to match the walls against which these are mounted, so that they would become even less conspicuous. There are some photo simulations that were made part of the staff report. each photo simulation shows the building as existing and the building with the antennas. There are existing some installations already on the roof of the building, so this would be another one. And I'm aware of yet another proposal that's in the works, and that's not for a telecommunications facility, but it's for a broadcasting facility for a radio company. But that has not materialized in the form of a formal application yet. That will be forthcoming when the application is filed. But based on the staff's recommendation is to recommend approval.
You're saying there may be additional equipment coming forward?
Yes.
A different applicant, different company. We have no idea what that will be.
Right. Okay. Does that conclude your report?
That concludes my presentation. The applicant's representative is in the audience. We've had a little discussion regarding the proposed condition, and he is agreeable to the condition.
Okay. Yeah, I have one speaker card, so we'll open up the public hearing. Al Gamboa.
Madam Chairman and Commissioners, my name is Al Gamboa. I'm with Milestone Wireless, and we're working with Verizon Wireless on this particular project. The idea was to try and relocate a portion of one of our existing facilities which was experiencing diminished performance, to a more favorable area, and this was the only building with the stature to place that particular facility for optimum performance. We were advised early on in discussions with staff that the building was sensitive because of its historical character, and worked with staff to try and devise a presentation for the antennas that imposed the least significant impact on the building's character. So we tried to make sure we minimized any projection, keeping it down below the level of the top of the parapet, and then matching it to the wall colors, agreeing with staff that we can paint whatever elements may protrude to minimize their significance. That would be any cable coming off the top could be painted this color, and we were trying to minimize any penetrations into the building so that we can have something that can be returned to the current condition. We stop using it. I agree fully with the representation of the planner, Mr. Bagnakian, and I would hope that the Planning Commission sees, or the City Council, I believe it is, sees again as being an insignificant addition to this building and not disturbing the harmony it's been established for preservation aspects with the Commission. I'm concluding.
Oh, thank you. Let me see if there's any questions for you. You do? Go ahead.
We are adding 4 per sector. We have 3 sectors. They radiate a signal out from the top in one of each 3 directions. Propagate our signal. Right, 4 per sector. Right, so those 3 sectors. All 4 on each sector. As shown,
Or on each 3 sides.
yes, on each 3 sides. And that's shown on the
Let's see
photo
the-
simulations.
You can sit closer. Point out this.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, we'll close the public session. Comments from commissioners? Discussion?
Well, I have just a question as the history of the building. Originally, it had a huge lion guard your goods sign, so if we wanted to make it the way it originally was, there should be a huge sign on there.
We could put a
Historically correct.
50-foot cell tower up and see how that goes. Yeah, that would be nice. That photo is amazing.
Yeah.
It shows that.
So this seems very insignificant as what used to be there. And they're basically attached to the stairwells anyway. So.
Following up on Mike's comment, if in the unlikely event that the historic neon signage or historical materials, we're in Neon City, that's our thing, were to be discovered, would they be able to coexist? I mean, I have nothing against the configuration that's proposed. I just wondered if it would allow for the addition of historical elements, or would they interfere with one another?
The original sign was on the east side of the roof, and all of the antennas are going in the three other directions, so I don't know technically. But the problem is the sign would not even come close to meeting today's code. So,
true.
But it would be fun to try it.
Yeah,
we could.
Good. Okay.
Well, I definitely appreciate the sensitivity towards a historic building, and I think the proposal is fairly minimized as far as how much it would impact the building, especially with painting the antennas to match. I think they'll, pretty much fade away. And I think we need to be sensitive as a historic commission to allow buildings to morph, especially a commercial building that has tenants, and they need technology to run their businesses. So I think in this case, it's very little impact to the historic register property and would be acceptable to me. Any other comments?
Yeah, I'm just going to comment that I would concur. I'm okay. I'm okay with the placements as proposed. I guess my only question is the way the equipment is going to be painted or finished, is that something that needs to be revisited over time, or is that sort of like lifetime, is that anything we need to think about?
How much lifetime paint out there? I don't know what the lifespan is. I do know that the companies as technology changes, some antennas aren't the current antennas, so the antenna's probably going to get changed out before the paint fails.
Okay.
But because it's on the register and we have the Mills Act, we'll have the ability to enforce that the appearance is always what the commission hopes it to be, which is that it basically blends into the wall. So we can make sure that happens forever, as long as the stuff's
so
up
that
there.
would be a requirement for the, company that is placing their equipment up there would be required under Mills Act too.
Well, the Mills Act binds the owner, but the owner is renting the space to the company, so we definitely have a way to enforce that.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm not going to get into all the contract, how that's all works out, but I just wanted to ask that question. Thank you.
I'm okay with it as well. It's not a problem.
No chance of a fake pine tree ending up there. That's our main concern. Okay.
If I could throw something out that I've thought of since we issued the staff report, the cabinets, which are going to be slightly visible from a few locations, I'm not sure that white is the best color for those, because it's actually kind of a brighter color, and they're not up against they're kind of freestanding. So I just wanted to throw out the idea that maybe a neutral gray or something that's kind of like other rooftop equipment might be better. I can't say. They're never going to not be visible. But if they were white, it might be bright.
Are you saying that because the paint will be new, it will just stand out, or is it you're trying to look for a good match to the walls, which makes sense?
Well, we want the antennas to match very closely to the wall, but these are they're like 4 freestanding cabinets that are toward the front of the building. It's just a thought, so I just want to throw it out for the commission to think about.
I was thinking those would be painted identical to the paint on the building and the attendant. Or you're saying they're going to be bright white?
No, the proposal is that they're going to be white to match the building and the other antennas.
Same white as the building.
But you're saying gray might make them fade away
Sometimes
a little bit
gray
more.
makes things just kind of look like rooftop stuff instead of part of the building. It's not, for me, it's not a big deal one way or the other, but it occurred to me the other day.
I think if it matches the building, wouldn't it be better?
Yes.
Right? Okay, we'll keep it.
Like
I think
matching
that
the building.
keep it building.
Yeah, I do
paint.
too. Yeah.
Is there a motion?
Okay, I make a motion that we approve as described the Verizon cellular cabinets proposed for 403 South Central Avenue.
In a second,
I'll second.
roll call, please.
Commissioner Vidor,
Yes.
Commissioner Vartanian,
Yes.
Commissioner Morgan,
Yes.
Commissioner Garpetian,
Yes.
Madam Chair Shire,
Yes.
and voted unanimously to approve.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, item 7C, this is a review of proposed revision of the bylaws of the Historic Preservation Commission regarding commission meeting date and time changes.
Okay, this is just a real quick presentation. I'm not sure that the commission even knew that we had bylaws printed. They've been sitting in the file. I wasn't too familiar with them. But it turns out that the bylaws are what establish the meeting date for the commission. And in order for us to change to our third Thursday of each month at 5 o'clock in this room, we needed to make that change, which appears on page 4 of the strikeout version, and I'm not sure which page of the regular version.
3.
Page 3. So we indicate the commission shall meet on the third Thursday of each and every month at 5 p.m. in Hearing Room 105, Municipal Services Building. While we were working on this, it was just clear that this hadn't been updated since we established historic districts, so most of the other changes just relate to bringing districts in, and it was just kind of a language cleanup exercise. And if the commission votes to do this, what we do is the chair will sign the last page of the document, and we'll date it as adopted as of tonight, and then we share this with the city clerk's office, who shares it with council, just so that it's all on the record, gets us put on the master calendar, and whatever else needs to happen.
The only question I had, Jay, the changes look appropriate, and looks like you're making some good updates to even technology in here.
Oh,
My
right,
one
yes,
question-
not the tape recordings.
Yes. My one question relates to page 1 of the strikeout version, where it's talking about the commission shall consist of 5 members serving a 4-year term without compensation, obviously. But the question
You wanna
relates
change that part?
relates to more the 4-year term. What happens after a 4-year term is served?
You're able to, your appointing council person can reappoint you.
Okay, so it can be
Yeah, this doesn't
another-
preclude that.
Got it.
This was kind of the standard language, I think, that all the
Okay.
bylaws have.
So you can go for another 4-year as long as you're appointed.
Yeah, we don't have term limits, I
Yeah.
don't think, so.
Okay, that's just the only question I had. Looks good.
Okay.
So do we need a motion to approve?
We need a motion to approve. We need to do a voice vote, and since Armene had to leave, I'll take the vote.
Okay.
Commissioner Morgan?
Yes.
Commissioner Vidor?
Yes.
Commissioner Vartanian?
Yes.
Commissioner Garpetian?
Yes.
Chair Shire?
Yes.
Okay, 5-0. And then we'll, after the meeting, we'll get a copy that you can sign.
Okay.
Share that. That's that.
Okay, next on the agenda, 7D, a review of certified local government annual report.
As I shared with some of you before the meeting, we were not able to complete the CLG report in time for the meeting tonight. So what we'll do is we'll make sure we get it in time for SHPO, State Historic Preservation Office, to have for their review so that we're meeting their deadline. And then at the January 16th hearing, which we had already been planning to do kind of a year-end 2013 wrap-up of the achievements of the commission and designations and all, we'll just include that for you to review and then base the basic information in it and try to get it on track for next year to get the official review in.
Thank you. Item 8, which is planning division updates and informational briefings. 8A is an update on the proposed repainting of the Good House, St. Register number 8 property.
And this is an item that Commissioner Morgan brought to my attention some time ago. And the city has a relationship with the group that owns this property, Ability First. And through the housing authority, or through the housing division, We have oversight over the maintenance of the building, and so we have arranged with Ability First to repaint. I went out and did an inspection with someone from Housing and the people from Ability First, and Commissioner Morgan was right. There is, significant paint loss on some elements. It's especially bad on the east and the south. The building's fairly well protected on the other two facades. So you can see here the stairway and the newel post are missing significant amounts of paint. Here's some damage that you can see. This is on the south-facing facade, kind of around the corner from the front facade. Nothing too horrible at this point. Nothing looks like it's rotting out. It's kind of just standard wear and tear. This is the north-facing side, where you can see it's in better condition overall. Still some markings where you can see chalking or whatever else is happening. I spoke with our Housing Division rep today. She's given the Ability First a 30-day extension to try to meet this, and we'll work with them to make sure that it can work on their schedule. I'll definitely be involved, meeting with the painters, making sure they have the skills and ability to take on a project like this. So hopefully within the next several months, and with weather and everything, and we can't say it'll be done. It might be springtime, but we'll try to get this done as soon as possible. So thank you, Commissioner Morgan.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner Morgan.
Thank you, Commissioner Morgan.
Good holiday.
Watchdog.
Quick question. No, go ahead.
It's in honor of Edie Good. I mean, this is his house. In deference to L.C. Brand, Edie Good, as far as I'm concerned, was the father of Glendale. So he deserves a good monument. Yes.
All these people with initials. Could you start calling me JL, please?
Yes.
Jay, do we have an established paint palette for this house?
I presume we would keep the palette that's there. I don't know the history of how this was painted. I'm sure the Historical Society must have been involved over time, and it looks pretty good in terms of the colors. They seem appropriate. But
Okay, so when we go to ask for repainting, it'll be at the same palette.
Yeah, and there may even be, we didn't talk about that when we were out there, but there may be a set of colors somewhere.
Okay.
Some of the documentation, I've never seen it, so.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Great, thank you.
All right, that's it.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I don't know if this is the appropriate time or if I should bring it up at another meeting, but I was wondering if I could make the suggestion that we think about perhaps not doing Mills Act nominations in December going forward. Just only because I think the holiday schedules for the visits might be a little, overwhelming, but I just feel badly that 3 out of 5 of us weren't able to make it to the Spencer House. So if that's something the commission wants to entertain thinking about, and if you think that's appropriate.
I see no problem with that. The problem is just remembering. come next November.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's just a matter of us remembering or.
Yeah, generally, because of the Thanksgiving and Christmas holidays, we usually have this meeting earlier in the month. But it was a real logjam with all of the different boards and commissions changing their schedules this year to get this date. So if we were earlier in the month, maybe that would work better. But
yeah, just a thought.
Yeah, no, it's a good idea, definitely.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, then with that, we will adjourn the meeting in honor of Ian Bainbridge. Thank you. See you in 2014.
Thank you.